Hello everyone, welcome to a new video. This week is going to look a little bit different because we have a new puppy in the mix. I will introduce you to Willow. Some of you have already seen Willow on my Instagram. She is a cavoodle, so she's a cross between a King Charles Cavalier Spaniel and a poodle, a toy poodle. She's not actually going to get that big. And she's my new studio dog. So she's been coming here to the studio each day, which has been super fun, very distracting, but also is making us work a bit differently. And I have been surprised though by how much work we've been able to get done. I think you adapt to things, like if you have a puppy or a new baby or something like that, and you can be surprised at what you do in a short burst of time. So anyway, because we have a new puppy, I decided to take a different approach with this week's video. And what Richie and I have been doing is just taking snippets from our week. So you are going to get a whole lot of different things this week. So there's a bit of puppy stuff, there's plenty of art, there's unboxing, artwork. What else is there? There's just some studio time where I talk about some of the changes that I am making in my art and all sorts of good stuff. So I hope that you really enjoy this video. I really love vlogs myself. They're the types of videos that I often watch. I know they're not for everyone, but I do love having the opportunity to throw a video like this in from time to time. So let me know in the comments if you also enjoy watching vlogs and these more relaxed type of videos. So Richie's having a bit of a fit because I keep getting these deliveries and usually it's art supplies, but it's all been related to the dog. So I have all these dog toys, a new dog bed, bits and pieces to keep her entertained while she's here. And I have a whole lot of stuff at home as well, but it was beginning to be a bit of a hassle to bring everything from home to here and then back again. So I've doubled up and gone dog stuff crazy.
So we've set up this pen area because there are quite a few things in the garden that we don't want to get in her, and this is her little safe space. It is looking quite boring at the moment, so I do need to get some things in here to make it more enticing for her, but it's really just an area for her to come out and go to the toilet, and then she can come back into my studio. So we've connected it up to my studio, which she really likes because she can go in and out and visit me in the studio whenever she wants. But you can see here that she can head on outside if she wants to. So later on today, I'm going to spend the afternoon in the studio painting and test this all out and see how she goes. I can tell that she's getting tired. She's gone very sort of quiet and floppy. So I'm going to pop her down and see if I can unbox some of this stuff in front of me. I actually just have one big box and it has a new painting that I ordered. I ordered it from Denise DeFara Art. I really love her botanical artwork, and she also has a YouTube channel, so I'll leave all her lovely details in the description. She's just a beautiful creative soul as well. So I'm excited to see her painting, and I've been holding off on unboxing it for a few days, which is always really hard, but I wanted to film it. So what I'm going to do now is just try and get this open. It's been packaged up nicely. It's been really beautifully packaged. So you've got cardboard, bubble wrap, and also this here to protect it. So you can see that it's a really sweet scene with 2 chairs, a table, some apples, and some beautiful branches of Australian plants. And these are Banksia branches. And I've been super attracted to paintings that have Australian native plants or Australian landscape scenes in them. So I'm very excited about bringing this painting around and finding a spot for it either here at the studio or at home. I'll just have to have a look and see where I can find the perfect place for this piece of art. So I thought I would show you a few other pieces that I recently acquired. This is the second painting that I have purchased from Kate Pitters, and Kate does these beautiful Australian landscape scenes, and this one I just really loved the blue colour palette and just the hints of pink, and I quite often use colour palettes like this in my art, so it really appealed to me, the colours, but it's a very different style of painting.
So let's see what else I have brought into my life lately. I also have this painting here, which is by Belinda Marshall. And Belinda is so good at capturing light and movement in these really soft, gestural, abstract paintings. And when I hung this one up at home recently, I was amazed at how the light just read in the painting and how it showed up differently at different times of the day. Really, really beautiful. And finally, I have a painting from beautiful Lizzie Alsop. Let me just get that the right way round. And I've been following Lizzie's work for a long time too. And again, it has the Australian native plants in it with the beautiful blossoms here from gum leaves. Absolutely gorgeous. And I really like the combination of the realistic elements with the abstract background and the different mark making elements. And this is a painting that I popped up on the wall in the lounge room at home, and my son walked in, and he's 11, and he just looked up at the painting and said, "Mum, where did you get that? That's absolutely beautiful." So that really melted my heart, and I know that this one will probably stay at home because my son likes it, and that way he'll get to see it. So they're the recent paintings that I have brought into my creative life, shall we say. And now it's just a matter of finding homes for them and dotting them around the place to keep me inspired. And yeah, I just love having all kinds of art around me. So it's Tuesday and Richie and I are having a catch up, which we try and do once a week just to run through whatever it is we are working on and to bring some focus to our days here at the studio. We then lead into a podcast, and I'm recording a podcast here. You can see the cameras. We actually record the podcast so that we can share snippets as well. And this one is all about Pinterest. I realised that I didn't actually want all these people going to my Instagram. I wanted to bring them over to my website because the website is where they can more easily find my classes, purchase art, and really get engaged in what I am doing. Hello everyone, it's Thursday and I've just come into the studio, and I have been finding that it's taking me longer to get in here because I have Puppy in tow and I have all these bits and pieces that I'm bringing for her, but we're starting to get into a routine where she gets all her yayas out at home, and then by the time I come in here, she's usually ready to just have a big morning sleep. So what I have been doing is bringing my laptop into the studio and working in here, because what I'm finding is that the studio is the easiest place to be where I can keep an eye on her, and she has access to outside. If I leave the door open, she can go into the pen area that we set up. And yesterday I was so excited because she got up and went out, did her business without me having to take her out. So I think it's going to be really good for her potty training. But it's funny because I've set this up because of the puppy, but I'm really enjoying working from my laptop in this spot in the studio because it's inspiring and it's a beautiful place to be. And I love looking out at all the windows, seeing the birds and the garden outside, but also just having my art around. And I'm finding that I'm doing more art in little bits and breaks where I'm finished up on a task in relation to the art business, and then I just see something and I decide to work on it. So it's become messier and I think if I was to continue to do this, my computer and my laptop and everything would probably get pretty messy, but I'm enjoying just having the art around. So it's got me thinking about what kind of routine and how I want to use my office, because I do have a dedicated office. And that's great, particularly when I'm in a really busy work mode time. So if I'm working on a launch or a sale or something like that, being in the office makes sense because I have 2 screens. It's a really quiet place. I don't have the same distractions, even though the distractions here are beautiful ones. They are still distractions if I really need to put my head down and get a lot of work done. But for things like what I'm doing this morning, where I'm just popping in to do a few emails, I am closing off registration for my Modern Mixed Media course this morning, so I just need to go into my website, change all the banners and headers and announcement bars, just turn everything off so that that course isn't open for registration anymore, which isn't a big task. So I can do something like that here and then get on with some art and other things like that. Later on today, I also have Pilates. So I have been going to KX Pilates twice a week on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. So this will probably be the first time that I leave Willow here while I go to Pilates and see how she goes with being away from me. So I've been working up to this with little short breaks, but she is the type of breed that really does love to be around people. So the biggest challenge at the moment is just getting her comfortable with being on her own. So we're doing that with little baby steps. So that's pretty much it for this morning. I'll be just getting some work done on my laptop. I've got my coffee and I think we have Success over there. She's in the dog bed, which is actually her car seat. So it doubles up as a dog bed. So that's pretty handy as well. So we're getting there as far as the routines and how this is going to work with bringing her to the studio each day and me actually being able to work and make art. I've been sharing stories and many of you have been asking me how on earth I'm getting anything done. And I am getting stuff done because she is really young and so she does sleep a lot. But when she's awake, I'm obsessed with her and I just watch her and play with her and if I try to get work done, it just doesn't happen. So I'm using her sleep times for work, which makes me think about if you have a baby and you're using nap times to get work done or art done. It's pretty similar, but it's easier because she sleeps longer and she's just a little bit easier than a baby, in my opinion. So I'm going to settle in now and do this computer work. The course is closing for registration in half an hour, so I've got a little bit of time just to make sure I turn off all my ads and things like that. So yeah, time to get some work done, time for her to have a sleep. So what I've been finding sitting here is that I look around me and the first things that I see are these pieces that I have clipped behind me. I have other things that I probably should be working on, but what I have been doing is reaching for these and adding little details to them. And I've been enjoying it, so I'm going to continue along with that. These are some quite old pieces. I think I was getting them ready to sell right before we moved into the studio, and I may have even shared them in a YouTube video. Well, it's almost been a year since then, and I still haven't got them up on my website for sale. But we recently released a podcast episode where Richie and I chatted about old work. And after that episode, I felt really inspired to get out these pieces again, do those final finishing touches and finally get them up on my website. But it has been quite a while since I worked on them. And you know how when you come back to work, sometimes you feel differently. So one piece that I thought was finished, I completely took in a different direction. And if I'm honest, it's kind of gone a bit weird for me. Like it doesn't feel like the work that I normally do. Some of the shapes are a bit different, but I'm just running with it, and I'll see when I finally go through them, I'll pick which ones I want to put up on my website. But I'm just testing out things and seeing what happens as I add in different elements, because over the course of a year, you pick up new ideas and new marks, shapes, colors. So I'm combining that with the old work, and then I'll go through them all and decide. So that's what I've been doing. I'll share with you the weird one. Maybe it's not that weird, I don't know, it felt weird to me. This is the painting that I was working on, and I brought in some of these tree shapes, which are a little bit more, I wouldn't say they're realistic, but they are pretty clear that they're trees, I think. And then I started adding in some other shapes, and it began to look like a scene. And the idea that I had in my mind was trees at midnight or at night time, and so this looks like a full moon. And anyway, I just got quite swept up in my imagination with this piece, and now I'm not too sure whether I want it to have quite so much recognizable imagery in there. I don't know if I want to mess it up a little bit more, but anyway, it's there, and I'll leave it for a bit. Sometimes that's the best thing to do, I think, when you're not too sure. Maybe just leave it for a few days and come back, and I might look at it on the wall and think to myself, my gosh, that's not where I want it to be, or I might love it. So we'll see. But I have been just adding to these pieces, and I do want to redefine this line with the oil pastel. So I might do that now and then put it away. And that's what I mean by like little tiny things. Like I'll just grab a piece and add one mark, or add a piece of collage, or add a paint color, and then I'll get on with something else. And that just keeps things going for me. It keeps me in my art, and it definitely improves my mood, because when I'm doing a lot of computer work, my mood just starts to go like this. And if I stay on my computer a long time, I just lose that connection to my art. So if there are small ways that I can dip back into my work, even when I'm busy with other things, then to me, that's the way to go. So that's what I'm doing. I'll continue working on these pieces over the next week or two, and hopefully I will get them up on my website, and I will let you know when they are up there. So I just thought I'd bring you over to these two pieces that I've been working on. So you can see I've been doing a lot of acrylic work over the last couple of months, and this piece has tree shapes through the background. So this is really soft tree, and then these lines, and I'm enjoying bringing in nature symbols, but in a quite abstract way. This one has the leaves. So these are gum leaves. I used inspiration from the garden with some jelly plate printing as well. You can see a tree shape down here. And I've been exploring adding in some more geometric shapes into some of the areas. And sometimes I like them, and sometimes I feel like I need to mess them up, because in the past I've usually had more softer shapes in my art. So if you have a look at the paintings that are over in the corner, it's much more fluid and soft. So I'm trying to figure it out at the moment. I'm in that figuring out stage, and I just love having a lot of stuff around me so that I can look at things and go, do I like that? Do I like that? Do I want it to be looser, or would I prefer if they were more structured? It just helps me to get a stronger sense of what I want from my larger paintings and my acrylic pieces, which is very much an ongoing work in progress. I still feel like I am developing a style around this type of work. I feel a lot more defined in my work when I work with watercolor. And I think I've talked about that in YouTube videos as well. But I feel like I'm making progress, and it's exciting to work in this way. And I can't seem to stop coming back to these acrylic-based pieces and pursuing, I guess, that goal of figuring it out. And you can see here as well, there's like a sort of like a bark pattern and tree. I don't know, I quite like what's going on in both of these pieces. I enjoy looking at them. I often look at them when I'm sitting at my table, and I think that's a really good sign when you find that you are drawn into a piece and you just see little details. And that's also something I really like. I like a painting where when you come into the piece, you notice more details. And even right now, as I come up closer to this piece, I'm seeing this tree lines that I used a baby wipe to rub out the paint, and just extra little details like this little etching here. It's got this little dotty pattern. So that to me is exciting when you come up closer to the work and you start seeing more and more details. And here's some jelly plate printing I did of leaves in the background in this shape. There's some Posca paint pen up there. Yeah, definitely liking the direction that this work is taking me. So some of you might have noticed that I've had this canvas sitting in this stage for quite a while, and partly that's because we've had school holidays and Christmas and things like that, but also I wanted to film the next layer, so I've been holding off on painting on this one so that I could find a filming day for it. And I also thought it might be good to work on some other smaller pieces just to flesh out and get some ideas about where I want to take this piece. And I do feel like these pieces here are going to be quite a big inspiration for what will end up happening on this one. I do want to bring some of that creamy colour through, and I'll probably play off some of the shapes, the leaves, maybe some tree shapes and things like that in this piece. So it is coming. I will eventually get to it, but I want to finish off some other things first. I've also been playing around with some watercolor work. So I don't know how many people who watch YouTube listen to our podcast, but in the podcast, which is called the Laura Horn Art Podcast, I talk about the fact that I'm always working on so many different things. Like I'm in collage, I'm in watercolor, I'm on mini canvases, I'm on bigger pieces, and it really is true. So the other day I jumped into some abstract painting on watercolor paper, and I'll show you that in a minute. So yeah, that was just a spontaneous, I feel like doing this today, which is quite often the way things happen for me. So this piece started with watercolor. You can see some beautiful Cascade Green by Daniel Smith. And then I've layered over the top with acrylic paint and some pen work as well, and some oil pastel. I'm not too sure whether I will keep it in the big size that it is, because when I've been looking at it from my table, I've been seeing some nice like little compositions. So I may end up cutting this piece up and then working into it a little bit more and seeing how that feels. But this piece was an exercise in trying to figure out how loose I want things to be, how washy I want things to be. And as I said to you, that's kind of what I'm working through at the moment. I'm trying to figure out how much structure I want to bring into my abstract paintings versus how loose and washy I want the shapes to be. So this is like a little bit more of an older style of painting for me, whereas the paintings that have a bit more structure in them are a bit newer. Having said that, I actually started the tree painting several years ago, so I guess the idea has always been there. I'm just figuring out where I want to focus, and finding focus is always one of those things that can be quite challenging, and it just requires a lot of work. So I need to make more pieces and then work through and see which ones I prefer the most. So I'm back in the studio and it's Friday, and Friday is the day that I have dedicated as my studio day. I fit in bits and pieces during the week, but I really do try and get into the studio on Friday for a good few hours to work on my art and to catch up on things and to be able to go a little bit deeper rather than just doing those short little bursts. At the moment, I am not really working on anything in particular. I am jumping from one thing to another. So I have quite a lot of stuff on the go. And I was just thinking as I came in today, what did I want to work on? And sometimes I would just take a bit of a walk through the studio, sometimes get a notebook out and write down a list of ideas or intentions for what I might want to get through in that session. And I do find that helps me to bring in a bit of focus, because inevitably there are many different paths that I could go down. So I decided to get that watercolor painting that was up on the wall and bring it down to my table and see if I could find some little compositions, because I do really like that idea of cutting it up and being able to work into it with some other mixed media techniques and just having it that smaller size. So that's what I think I'll get started with. I've also switched over the canvases, so I have a different canvas up on the easel, and I want to add in some other botanical elements into that and some mark making. So I have that up on the wall, and then who knows what else I might pick up. I have a few ideas for some of these canvases and pieces behind me. So I think it is going to be one of those days where I just do little bits on various different substrates. And sometimes they are the most enjoyable days because you don't get stuck or overly perfectionistic about one particular piece, and you just slowly move things forward. So that's the plan, and now I'm going to get started on this watercolor piece.
She's watching, weary eyes reminded of all he's forgotten. New day on the horizon.
it's just gone past 5 p.m. and it's time to wrap up, and I've been working pretty flat chat on mostly this large canvas in front of me, but also on a few other things. I've been sweating because it's been quite hot. I'm probably in a right state. But anyway, I got my studio time in, which is great, and I made a bit of progress on this canvas. What I really wanted to do in this session was start bringing in some lighter colours and some contrast, and I've been bouncing ideas around and drawing inspiration from these paintings behind me, and it's now in that middle zone. So it's sort of, I don't know whether it's got better or worse, but it's still progress, because I know that there are things that I can do in my next session, and I love leaving a session knowing that there are a couple of things I want to continue to work on. So I'll tell you about those once I lift up the canvas. I've been working on it flat, so I was just waiting for it to dry. It's really great being able to work on a canvas both in its vertical format and also in its horizontal format, especially in the way that I like to work. So I had it horizontal because I was doing some drips and splatters and I didn't want them to run. So now that everything is dry, I will flip it up and we can have a look at where it's at. But as I said, it's very much a work in progress, so just keep that in mind. So this is where I've got to. I started off by adding in these leaf shapes. There's quite a high contrast between these leaves and the background. So I will probably glaze over them at some point or do something to the background in order to lessen that contrast a bit, but we'll see. And other than that, I mostly worked on just getting in some creamy areas and some texture. There's a bit of a tree shape there, and I also brought in some of the blue. So I was trying to think about what other colour I wanted to bring into this painting, because it was basically just pinks and browns. And so I thought, oh, I'll try a bit of the blue, because I had the blue left over from the other work that I was doing, and I always like to find something that I can just use up paint on. So I thought I'd bring it in, and I do quite like the blue addition, and I might even bring in a dark navy blue as well and shift the colour palette a little bit. And see what that looks like in the next session. And I might bring the blue colour through this whole area here, so there's a larger section down there. So as I said, I've got a couple of ideas of things that I could continue on with in the next session. So other than that, I did the little paintings, or the two paintings that are up on the wall. I added those little details into, and I really like how that's looking. And this one here, I will probably add in some kind of pattern into this section down here, a bit similar to that, and see how that feels. And then over to my work table, you can see the little mini watercolor paintings, and I really like these now that I've cropped them down. Creak. You can hear the creaking of the floors in here, so I need to keep still. So I haven't finished these, but I've just started to add in more mark making onto them. And a few of them I added in that blue colour. So a little bit of stencil work there, and just a section there. I will come back into that and add more. I was probably just using up some of that blue paint, I think, at this stage, and same with this one. This one had absolutely nothing really going on, so this is like a fresh start, and I'll keep adding in another session. But these are going to be super fun to carry on with, so I'll probably just leave them on the table close by, so that if I'm looking for something to do next week where I just want to do like little details, I will probably pick these up and add a few more mixed media marks into them. So that's it for this week. It's actually been quite a big week with my Modern Mixed Media course going live, doing stuff in the studio and getting used to having Willow, our puppy, here. It's felt like quite a hectic week, to be honest. So I'm now looking forward to getting home, putting my feet up and having a relaxing weekend. And I hope that you have a lovely week or weekend, depending on when you watch this.